not intimidated at all.
Yeah, he's only got one Marauder out, and just that one bunker, and to be fair, 6 Roaches at the front door isn't really going to do anything.
The lair still has not started. He's just now starting his initial upgrades. I'm curious if he's going to go for ranged or melee, if he's actually going Roaches. And he's just going... No, he is getting melee upgrades. So I guess the Roaches are just to keep himself safe early on, but that's very unnecessary and very wasteful. You spend a lot of gas on that, and they don't really accomplish much. It's much better to go Speedling to get map control, or just invest more in the Queens and go very creep heavy. So... He does have the Roaches if any kind of follow-up attack happens, but Dystar is just sitting back, macroing up. He's not going to attack into that. He's already seen the Roaches. There's no reason to. He's just going to sit on his economic advantage and ride that out.
And he has one hell of an economic advantage. The third base is almost complete here for Alastor, but we should bear in mind that this CC has been sitting here for a long time, allowing both triple mule production and ridiculous amounts of SCVs to actually come out and saturate these 2 bases much, much quicker. So Dystar's in a good spot and is continuing to build production facilities and get his upgrades. His upgrades were a little bit late as well, so it's actually resulted in the Zerg player getting a little lead in that, not by much.
The creep spread is pretty okay for Alistair. And he is dropping a 4th hatchery and a Spire, so I guess he is just going to transition to Mutiling Baneling off this, but not a very good opening to do so. I mean, he's going to be just in normal shape. It's going to be the same as if he did a normal opening, except maybe a minute or 2 behind, I guess, something like that. So, not sure if I understand that, but it is going to transition into a normal game. But I think that's right in Dystar's wheelhouse. Like, that seems to be what he's comfortable with. He wants to play Bio Widowmine Medevac against Mutiling Baneling and then just try and do it better than you.
Yes.
So I think he's pretty okay with the situation. And if we look at the income tab, he hasn't even started mining from his 3rd base yet, and he's already ahead, despite being down Harvesters. The power of those mules kicking in. And this timing attack is very, very strong. There's no Banelings at all yet on the field for Alistair.
Indeed, Ground Carapace kicks in, which is kind of nice, but we already got a bunch of roasted hotlings there, and Dystar is pressuring this base, and he would love to take that out if that's at all possible. It's going to be a bit difficult with Banelings coming up here. I think he will be shoved back, especially with the Queens, but definitely not the best use of Banelings I've ever seen. 1 Baneling per Marine, so that really wasn't as efficient as it could have been. Dystar going to get out of there, and he's going to lose 1 Marauder, which is unfortunate, but neither side really accomplishing much.
They ended up trading units for units, but he lost a lot of Banelings there. That was not a good trade for Alistair. And there's really no excuse for that. Like, I wasn't even considering the fact that Dystar could do an attack and be successful here, because the entire point of having Roaches and Banelings out early like that is they make you very safe.
Yeah.
Like, it's an unnecessary amount of safeness, so it puts you behind economically, but it means you should never take damage from anything early on. So the fact that he did that and still took damage and is continuing to take damage, Dystar's good.
Here comes a little push. And it is enough Banelings to kill that off, but, well, most of it. It doesn't actually kill all of it. More Marines are coming behind this.
Medevacs are
They're pretty good units.
So continuing to trade, but again, Alistair should just be absolutely crushing these attacks because of his build. He was investing in early defense. They now have equal Harvesters, and he's been spending a lot of Banelings to kill off Marines, while Dystar just continues to grow and get bigger back at home. His 3rd base is now fully up and running. He's got a bunch of additional barracks, as well as the 2-2 upgrades on the way. Although 2-2 is, of course, on the way as well for Alistair, and he now has Mutas on the way out. 4 more barracks coming up from Dystar, so his production is going to skyrocket pretty shortly here.
Certainly looks like it will, and Dystar's already done pretty well. He managed to save units there. Those Baneling connections, as he pointed out, have been not so great for Alastor, to say the least. They've been particularly inefficient, which has resulted in Dystar being able to trade much, much better. Dystar has lost less resources, and more importantly, I think Dystar has actually lost a hell of a lot less gas. I mean, how many Banelings have died up to this point? There is actually a tab for that, but hold that thought, because in comes the engagement. Mutalisks are gonna not be able to clean that up. A little bit of indecision from Alastor and the reinforcements coming in, so that's that. The Widowmines died, but so did the Banelings.
Just like the last TBZ Dystar played, he's just playing the very normal Marine Parade kind of style, where he keeps sending units at you. You keep kind of almost breaking it. And I mean, if the Zerg's winning, then they just absolutely destroy those attacks. But if the Zerg is at all behind, then it's just a slow, painful death, because you keep being less and less efficient as the upgrades and the production kick in. And Dystar just going to keep ramming his advantage home. Just rally units across the map, and there's nothing Alistair can really do about it. He can keep holding it off, maybe, but even then, he's doing so inefficiently, and eventually he's just not going to have enough.
Well, the 3rd went pop there, so that's really, really bad. There's There's about a minute where he has a slight upgrade lead, and he manages to get a Ling run by somehow past that wall off, which is quite impressive considering the size of that wall off. But that didn't really get much done. He killed a few workers here and there. Currently, it's 22 workers killed to 5, so he's got a little ways to go if he wants to try and sort out that disparity. And so far, Alastor has not really shown himself to be on the same level as Dystar.
No, he definitely looks outmatched here. I really just don't understand his build order early on. The only thing it really accomplishes is being safe. A big Muta counterattack, and actually no turrets for Dystar, a bit sloppy by him. Mutas could actually do a lot of damage here if he uses them well. But at the same time, he's going to lose that other third base back over on the left side of the map. He's going to be left without any real economy to speak of.
Okay. Interesting. Actually, Dystar's going to pull back. He's worried about this. You know, he's pulling back to try and defend it. Because that's
a lot of mutas.
Yeah, it also means his production was camped, so he was actually losing units unfairly. And in come the Banelings right now, and actually Alastor thinks, yeah, you know what? You're going to bring your army back, I'll bring mine. But unfortunately, his gets killed. So that didn't work out too well. However, there are still Mutalisks camping and doing damage here, and they've done quite a bit. 41 workers killed by Alastor. In fact, actually, it was Alastor who had the workers kill lead. I'm not actually sure how he managed that. He must have done a couple of Ling run-bys and done way more damage than I thought.
Yeah, I only saw the one run-by that you mentioned. I'm not sure how that
I didn't see any others. I'm not sure how he pulled that off.
Huh.
Well, whatever. So,
anyway,
as it turns out, he's actually done significant economic damage.
But he did end up losing all those mutas and all those banelings and lots of circlings. And the army from Dystar is now back across the map with no counterattack to worry about this time. But that's still quite a bit of bio, and it is all fighting on creep, so it's still doing reasonably efficient damage. But more and more units coming in, and Marine Parade TVZs. They're just so frustrating, because it always feels like I'm just about to win. I'm actually going to wipe the army this time.
And then
the next round comes.
Yeah.
And it never ever happens.
Yeah, which is why it's, you know, so nice to be able to camp that production. And since, you know, Alastor was able to do a little bit of that, but now without his large amount of Mutalisks. Oh, never mind. We got another Ling run by there.
Yeah, killing more and more SCVs, and supply advantage remains pretty small for Dystar, but he does still have a supply advantage, and he has 3-3 upgrades on the way. No 3-3 coming for Alastor, and unless Alastor manages to kill him before those upgrades kick in, that, if nothing else, should be the end of it, because 3-3 against low econ Mutiling Bane, it gets kind of silly.
Well, that's going to be a cancelled command center. That's actually going to be a killed command center, so there's 400 resources down the toilet for whatever reason. This third base, regardless of having the biggest wall-off ever, is still actually being run by on.
I don't know how the Zerglings keep getting in there. That looks like a type.
Idea.
I guess they go all the way around between the barracks.
I don't know, but all I can say is that Dystar's defense of that base has been a little bit lackluster.
If he built a single bunker there, the game would be over by now.
Indeed, I think it would. I mean, the massive amount of economic damage that was actually done at that third has actually kept Alastor in this game. So it's a little bit of a comedy of errors, but Alastor definitely making the right decisions, just not really getting the right engagements.
Oh, and I don't know, he keeps having a lot of units. So Dystar splits are just good enough that he never takes critical damage. And this might, I don't know, I keep thinking it's going to be the end of it, then Alastor barely holds on, but this one's looking pretty grim here.
It is. There's a few more Banelings coming out. He's going to lose a bunch of mutas, though. They're all on really low health, so this is looking a little bit ugly. Dystar pushing forward once again. The splits are decent enough, perhaps. A couple of Widow Mines borrow down and don't hit the muta pack, which is what he was looking for, and Dystar's actually shoved back again by Alastor.
Well, 3-3 will kick in before the next attack, at least from Dystar. And 3-3 does finish now. He's also starting to add in Thors, which will make his army a little bit beefier. I'm not sure about that. I feel in low econ, very aggressive games, Widow Mines are the better option. But Alastor, the one thing he has been doing a very good job of, I say his 2 Widow Mines are about to blow up his army. He has been doing a pretty good job of clearing out Widow Mines. There is not that existing Widow Mine field that we saw in a lot of the other ZVTs thus far today. And you know, while this has all been happening, Alastor actually established a 4th base, and he does have his own 3-3 upgrades on the way. +3 attack for air, and +3 carapace, plus the adrenaline upgrade for ground. So, I mean, he's trying to make a game of it. Dystar just now taking his 4th base. That 4th base plus 3-3 upgrades, I really don't think it would be possible for Alastor to win at that point. I really think he has to deny that 4th base. But he really shouldn't still be alive at this point, in my opinion, so maybe I'm not totally correct on that.
He does seem to be rather tenacious. There are a lot of missile turrets coming down on that base, so he is looking certainly to deal with mutas coming in that general direction. There are only 10. They will have +3, but I mean, that's a very expensive upgrade for not so many Mutalisks, so I have to wonder if he's going to try and surge more production. He doesn't really have the gas to do that. He's building another 7, so that certainly makes him a lot more threatening. And considering Dystar's fairly lackluster defense of his mineral lines, the amount of damage he could do, especially on that 3rd, would be significant.
I feel like Alistar is kind of set on the... It's a style that's become popular recently in ZVT where you go really, really heavy on mutas, and then you just try and constant counterattacks and never let your opponent get up a 4th base, and then you just trade banelings from Marines whenever you can. He doesn't really have the economy to support it, though. He's starting to approach it, but he was doing it earlier on. It cost him a lot of banelings, and he lost a lot of mutas he couldn't really afford to.
Alistar's control lacks, I think. Especially, he charges groups of Lings into walls of 3/3 Marines, and then pulls them back and loses a bunch, and in kind of an unnecessary fashion. It's a little bit concerning. If you're going to play this style, you do kind of need that control. You can't just throw units at your opponent. The Thor is going to get taken down, but not without significant damage being done. The Bailey's coming. Oh, and he's not splitting Dystar. What the hell? Alistar might be coming back into this.
Well, would you look at that? He had 0 Widow Mines.
Yeah.
0 Widow Mines. He had nothing at all to deal with banelings.
Oh, that's
and there were a lot of
Thor.
banelings there.
Jesus. Well, so much for the splits. Dystar had been keeping on top of it up to that point, and then suddenly 40 banelings come in and flatten the Terran. And for the first time in this game, Alistar actually has a supply lead. He's camping production. More Lings are coming in. +3 attack for the Mutas is about to kick in as well. The Marines are getting just completely overrun by Adrenalings here. This is a comeback, if I've ever seen one.
It definitely is. The blame falls mostly on Dystar. Like, props to Alistar for his tenacity and for finding his opportunity to win. But Dystar had absolutely no right to lose this game. Not a single bunker at that 3rd base the entire time. No Widow Mines there at the end. No scouting at all. Didn't see the flank coming. That was disappointing play from Dystar. He absolutely had that game in the bag. I don't know if he got cocky and just kind of was like, I can attack, move, and end this. Or if it was just genuinely bad play. But that was very questionable.
That was a game of throws, I think, from both. We had Alistar really not playing all that well for the first, really, 15 minutes. He went with the questionable opening there, which didn't really work out so well. Didn't really get him anywhere. Dystar was clearly ahead economically, starts to hammer bases, takes the 3rd out, even gets good trades, takes out a lot of banelings for not too many Marines, and things are going pretty well for the Terran player, and then suddenly he lets his 3rd get ransacked about 3 separate times. Run-bys come in, massive economic damage is inflicted, Dystar's production gets camped for a while, his production starts to slow down as a result, and then, out of nowhere, 40 banelings show up, smash the Terran army completely because there's no Widow Mines, no tanks, no defense, not even a decent wall-off around that natural ramp, and suddenly, it's all over.
That is the power of the late-game Zerg army. If your opponent hasn't made a transition to a beefier army, if they're still very bio-heavy, it just takes one good baneling engagement, and you can really snowball from there. Because if you get above their production, Mutaling is very, very efficient against ungrouped Marines. Like, you can't just trickle them in. You need to come in as at least a pack. And, well, I mean, that's what happened there. Just the lack of Widow Mines, the lack of bunkers. Seriously, a single bunker at the 3rd base would have won the game 3 times over for him. That's very disappointing.
It was a bit, I gotta say. That could have certainly gone a lot better, and Dystar certainly had that game in the bag for the vast majority of it, and then somehow it ripped open the bag and escaped before he noticed. So there you go. Probably should have protected the bag better. But now we're in a situation where Dystar gets to, well, sit on the bench as Alistar is able to take a game, the first game that Spain has taken throughout this tournament up to this point, and that was maybe even a surprise to Spain, because I would have thought they would have thinking, all right, well, Alistar's probably not going to be able to pull this off. We'll send out Majestic, who can maybe get a win, and then we'll rely on Vortex. But now they don't have to do that, which is fantastic for them.
Absolutely. If anything, maybe they were just hoping that he would, like, put up a fight or whatever, and then give Majestic map choice and pick something that's really, really good for Protoss versus Zerg, and hope he could take out one win, and then hope that Vortex can get the other 2. Now, life gets much easier for them. They will get map pick for Majestic whenever he has to come out, and there's already one person down, so just limiting the options of Poland. To be fair, though, Dystar is definitely the weakest member of Poland's team, even with Mana not performing up to his old standards. He's certainly a better player than Dystar here. And then, you know, you have Nurcio, who pretty much has to be considered the ace, even though he had a very lackluster performance in the previous Nation War. Losing to Roach Bane, that happens. That's not too much of a comment on your skill. He's still the the end boss here.
That's very true, and I can't imagine they're going to want to throw Nurchio into another ZVZ. Not after last time. It's too risky.
They should definitely put Mana out here. Mana, he at times throughout his career he has really disliked PvZ. I'm not sure how he feels about it right now, but either way, he's certainly good enough to beat Alistair, especially with map choice. So I would be very surprised if they send out Nurchio now. Especially with Vortex waiting to be cleaned up, and then Majestic. I don't know. I almost feel like Majestic is a non-factor. He flubbed that first game against Titan pretty badly, and I've never ever heard of him.
Yes, that was a little unfortunate, but that does put Poland in a rather awkward spot, having lost that. I mean, we should bear in mind, of course, that they did lose. I wouldn't even say arguably their weakest player, definitely their weakest player. Dystar is not up to the caliber of Mana and Nurchio. That's a fair thing to say. But it does mean that they did hand a win to one of the weaker players on the Spanish roster, which is not something they really should have done.
No. Not at all. I'm not too worried for them just yet. They lose another one, then obviously it starts to get pretty tricky. Depending on anyone, even someone as good as Nurchio, to have to 3-0. Sorry, excuse me. To have to 3-0 is not a situation to be in, no matter what. So if they lose another one, they definitely they need to start being worried. But as is, they still have two players to work with, and I think either of the two of them is capable of 3-0ing the entire Spanish team in its current condition. So I still would put my money on Poland, even from this situation. I think they're pretty okay.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. It depends what we see out of Vortex, I suppose. I don't expect Alistair to take another map like that, but he might surprise. We've seen it already in this tournament. And if
that's the other thing. That's the other thing to keep in mind. Alistair did not look particularly good in that win. That was not him being a dominant force to be reckoned with, as Ike kind of looked like in some of his earlier games. That was him looking pretty lackluster, kind of sticking around and letting Dystar mess it up for himself.
They're sending Nurchio out.
I don't like that. That's not a smart choice.
Interesting.
I don't know, maybe because he said himself he really isn't too comfortable best of one ZVZ. Anything can happen, and anything did happen just the previous match. Seems questionable. Maybe he really wanted map choice, but he's gonna get it whenever he comes out anyway.
Yeah.
And map choice matters a whole lot more in CVP than ZVZ.
Well, we're gonna have a ZVZ on habitation station here.
Well, I do think this was purposeful. The mains are so close together that your Overlord Scout gets in there almost immediately. You see anything coming miles away. So it's relatively easy to deal with anything early on. Approach Baneling busts, though, are always a bit of a threat. It's always hard to scout them if your opponent does it well and hides it well. So it's not going to help too much in terms of that. Maybe he has some kind of 10-pool build that he feels very comfortable with on here, because, again, the short rush distance is something to keep in mind. But just generally speaking, I disagree with that decision. They should have sent Mana out first.
I think so. That would have been my pick as well, honestly, considering. I think Mana would have wiped the floor with Alistair, and then he could have most likely taken whatever the next game was as well. Maybe you force out Vortex, and then... The hope is that you take out Vortex so you don't force Nurchio into another ZVZ. And Mana is totally capable of beating Vortex. But, well, they made the call to the northeast position, playing for Team Poland in the Red Trunks. From Team Acer, it is, of course, Nurchio. Versus his opponent to the northwest position, surprisingly, making his way through that game. I mean, he was losing it for about 85% of it, but he was able to pull out that win. Can he do it again? In the Blue Trunks playing Zerg, for Team Spain, it is Alistair.
Alistair, both of them just building up no 10-pool, so the thought that Nurchio might have something special prepared early on does seem to be out the window. I'm curious if he's going to go pool first. I imagine he'd go pool first. He generally prefers that. He prefers the safer side of things, and he has to consider himself the better player in this matchup. Generally, when you do consider yourself the better player, you'll want to play a bit safer. Take it into the long game with skill is a bit more important than luck. And yeah, there goes the pool first, 15 pool, as is normal for him. It looks like a hatchery first. Yep, a hatch first from Alistair. So it's a small bit of an economic advantage for him. Not too big one way or the other.
No, not at all. It's totally fine either way, really. I'm not seeing anything extreme out of either of these guys. But I worry for Nurchio. I worry that if he ends up eating another all-in again, then this is going to go really badly for Poland.
And it is a decent situation for some kind of slightly delayed all-in to come out of Alistar, because just that slight advantage you get with the hatchery first pool first, it's already on such a nice edge if you do a Roach Bane all-in against Mutas, like we saw in Nurchio's previous game against Targa. He was just a minute away, or not even a minute, he was like 10 seconds away. If he had 10 seconds to let the Spine Crawlers finish, reposition 2 of them, he holds that attack easily. Or just to put another Spine Crawler up, or whatever. And so just being a drone or 2 behind from the initial build orders, even that can make a big difference in trying to hold off some kind of cheese. So if Alistar is just satisfied with getting his 1 win, wants to take some coin flip shot at taking out Nurchio and setting his team up really well, I think that would actually be a pretty good tactical decision from the standpoint of the whole nation war.
I agree.
Like, maybe not the best chance to win this game, but a worthwhile risk to take.
Yeah, I think so. Because then you get to throw out Vortex, who has a good shot at beating Nurchio and ZVZ, and then you've just got to deal with mana one way or the other, and you can do that with a PvP as well, even if you end up having Vortex lose there. So that could work, but we'll see what Alistar decides to do here and when he decides to attack. For the most part, these guys have roughly the same timings on these upgrades, which is what tends to happen when you happen to go, say, 14 or 15 pull versus that hatchery. But the difference is, when does the Baneling Nest go down? Alistar and Nurchio both at exactly the same time there.
Yep, mirroring perfectly thus far, just a drone or 2 ahead, as is to be expected for Alistar. So, nothing too funky yet. We just have to keep an eye on the production tabs as the first larva injects pop. Is coming right up here for Alistar. Those will all be Zerglings if he wants to do some kind of insane all-in.
Yeah.
I really doubt that will be the case. And we do see a Spine Crawler coming up from Nurchio very early on, so he's a little bit paranoid, doesn't want to die to anything early on. He did get pretty decent scouting information, so that Spine Crawler is on, he's very much so erring on the side of safety. Whereas Alistar being relatively greedy, no Spine Crawler, only the 2 initial Zerglings that aren't even back in his main. So if a Ling Bane all-in came out right now, Alistar would be in a lot of trouble. But he is putting up his 3rd and 4th gas, his lair should be starting up shortly here. Just a normal, quick muted ZVZ from him, it would appear. And I'd imagine the same thing from Nurchio. He's just kind of delayed because he's playing much safer.
Yes. Yes, he is. There we go. There's the lair coming up. So we've had 6 minutes of absolutely nothing in this ZVZ, which can be a little bit rare. Ooh, that was a nice use of a single Ling there, and poor control from Alistar to allow a Baneling to go off like that.
Yeah, not the best, but he's not going to be in any pressure. It doesn't look like Nurchio's planning to attack him anytime soon. He has to play a little bit of catch-up in terms of drone and gas income. So losing the Baneling is annoying and shouldn't happen, but it's not really going to cost him too much right away. It's not like he's in any danger of an all-in.
No.
Both sides just still droning up, and Alistar is actually making a lot of drones. Quite a bit. This is around the point where he should start up Zergling production. It actually gets counterproductive to make too many more drones than this. He needs to go take that 3rd base, start up his Zergling production, so he can go deny the 3rd of Nurchio.
And Nurchio is able to get into the base and get a full scout off there without too much of a problem. He sees absolutely everything. He'll lose the Lings on the way out, most likely. But hey, if he took a Baneling like that again, yeah, that's worth it. Absolutely worth it. We actually saw another round of drones coming from Nurchio as well, so they both went around the same amount and both started Spire at the same time. So we're going to most likely see those really wonky Mutalisk wars coming out.
That's always a lot of fun. I really feel that Mutalisk wars favor the better player. I think this is good for Nurchio, although he's better more in his decision-making, more so than his mechanics. And ZVZ is all just about macroing and taking smart fights. But it's pretty easy macro to execute. And it looks like Alistar is actually setting up for an attack, despite the fact that Nurchio hasn't taken his 3rd base yet.
Huh.
Which is interesting.
I can't see this doing much.
No, it really shouldn't. Barring any big micro fails from Nurchio, like losing a
like that. Yeah.
And back at home, actually both players taking the gold base as their 3rd. I kind of dislike that. Minerals don't help in this matchup. You need gas, not minerals. And the 3rd base is just very, very exposed in the air.
Yeah, and I mean, that's going to be a cancel by the looks of it. Alistar gets a good surround on that, and is going to be able to knock it out no problem at all. So that was a questionable decision. Oh, nice use of the Baneling there by Alistar. He's trying to pick off the other 2 with individual Lings. Nurchio was able to micro around that. Oh, there's one. Oh, that was heart-wrenching. Good lord. That was very, very close, but that's been taken out. And now we're seeing the same thing with Nurchio actually counter-attacking here. and there aren't any units to stop him, so we're going to see possibly double cancellation here.
Yeah, Alistair got a bit greedy. He absolutely should have had another round of Zerglings coming out. He stopped one Larva inject early so he could get his mutas out as quickly as possible.
Oh, no cancel.
Gonna cost him that hatch through.
Ugly.
And that's never worthwhile. You're always going to get those mutas out eventually. You're never going to die to your opponent's mutas early on in this kind of situation. You always just want to make sure you're safe. Because if you have your third and your opponent doesn't have their third, you win the game. So, unnecessary little risk from Alistair just being kind of greedy. He's still in very good shape, though. He's still 2 base versus 2 base. He has more mutas. Dang. Pretty sure he has more mutas. He had more gas income early on. He's going to retake his third a little bit faster. So... But he is Overlord blocked here, which means he's going to be at a bit of a unit deficit in a moment. But I don't think Nerchio's really going to be able to take advantage of it.
Not by the looks of it. Yeah, 13 to 12, not really a huge deal one way or the other. They're both still trying to take that gold base, which is kind of crazy considering they both went Mutalisk.
For Alistair, it's kind of okay because I feel like he has muta dominance and he should know it. He should know that he was ahead in terms of economy. Oh, and if he cancels this...
Ooh, he gets it.
He lost a muta for it, but that's worthwhile, as long as he doesn't lose his own third in return. And there's actually a Zergling run by into the main that's going to kill a lot of drones. And the queen.
Let's see how much damage he gets. The surround on the queen. But there's the save, actually. Nice little move there by Nerchio. And overall damage, it's still pretty good. Alistair's killed 8 workers in total up to this point, and Nerchio's actually running on a very low worker count, considering he's trying to take that third. And then we've got a muta on muta war, as Nerchio has actually the numbers disadvantage and gets driven away there.
That was awful from him. I don't know why he would do that. His upgrade is really, really far behind, and Alistair's +1 Carapace actually finished halfway through that fight. Terrible engage. But now Alistair's the one taking kind of a questionable engagement with that queen there. He is going to be able to power through it, and he is going to be able to... And that's pretty much the game for him, honestly.
Wow.
Zergling counterattack, but that's not going to be able to kill the hatchery. I don't think. Alistair messing
I don't think so. No. Alistair's even transferring drones in the middle of that fight, and that's going to be a lot of dead overlords as well. We're even going to see a supply block for Nerchio here. Alistair is having his breakout performance right now, courtesy of Nerchio at this point, so I think what we were saying earlier about not sending out mana being a questionable decision may have been right, but it's not over yet. Alistair could very much make a mistake here. Nerchio's going Nidus.
That's interesting. I'm not sure what that's... What the... Alistair is just like throwing away his mutas. He does manage to get to kill the third hatchery, but he just lost enough mutas and he no longer really has air dominance. So he might end up losing his own third. This is... I think Alistair is still ahead, but this is just horrendously sloppy play from both sides, especially in terms of the muta control.
It is getting a little bit strange, isn't it? Now Alistair's going to throw away a bunch of mutas because those are on fairly low health as it was. Link's coming in as well. Both sides flat out refusing to build spore crawlers for some reason, and Nerchio gets the better end of that significantly.
But there's a Zergling attack coming into the natural and the main as well. And
oh yeah, never mind.
Nerchio has been driven back in terms of the muta, so Alistair now has 3 bases to 2. He has a superior muta count, and he's losing, or he's killing off a lot of drones in the main of Nerchio. So barring that Nidus doing something weird, and the Nidus honestly doesn't have that much potential to do anything in Mutaling versus Mutaling, it's not going to be good for Nerchio. Alistair needs to get that 3rd base mining again, though, because that is his saving grace right now.
Certainly
you should probably put a spore there. He can afford it.
Put a couple, you know. Those things they were on a fairly low muta count. That means if you're fighting over those spores, obviously the Mutalisks are going to get absolutely destroyed. They're incredibly powerful right now. And Alistair, as you said, does have a 3 Mutalisk advantage. He's also bringing in queens as well. So he's got lings, a few lings underneath it to absorb some of those bounces. So that's looking pretty good. However, Nerchio did manage to make his own ling run by, go all the way into the natural, and is doing significant damage with it at this point. Now he's evened up the workers killed, 39 to 40. However, we do have Alistair still mining from the gold, yet more of these overlords going down. Nerchio doesn't really care at this point. He's on too low supplied for it to matter. And this is all over the place.
And Nerchio actually has more mutas here, plus he has 3 queens to 2, so he has to be careful about that. And Alistair actually losing all of his queens to those Zerglings. And Nerchio, I believe, still has a better muta count here, so he's going to win that fight. Still 3 base to 2, and Alistair does have the gold base mining now, so that's pretty good income. But if he can't hold on to it, it's not really going to matter.
Still not building any spore crawlers. Alright. Nerchio's getting a little bit vocal.
Nerchio knows how dumb this game is.
It is getting a little silly, isn't it? I gotta say.
Alistair had absolutely no right to lose this game. It was like 99% over. I have no idea.
Well, Alistair does have a lot of lings on the ground. He's going to, yet again, absorb more bounces, kill a few queens here and there, but the muta count is still a little bit too high. It's now 11 to 6. Alistair still refuses to build spore crawlers, which makes me cry inside.
Alistair is sitting on a gold-based advantage, like an entire gold base to nothing, and he just continues to attack and refuses to just sit on it and secure his advantage and win the game, like easily for sure.